The winter air in Ashford, Vermont had a bite to it that night, sharp and cold, like the forgotten memories that gnawed at my chest. Christmas Eve. I hadn't been back in years. Not because I didn't want to, but because every time I thought about it, my heart twisted. I had spent so many years away from Charlotte, my daughter chasing dreams that never fully materialized. Now, as I stood outside the small house on Maple Street, the snow falling gently around me, I could feel the weight of all that time, the weight of all that I had missed. I wasn't expecting a grand reunion. No, I had come to make amends to repair the pieces of our broken relationship. But as I stood there, suitcase in hand, my breath leaving puffs of vapor in the icy air, something about the night made me uneasy. It wasn't just the cold. It was something deeper, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones and didn't let go. I had been away traveling the world for my business, for my life, and during those years, I convinced myself that Charlotte would understand. I would tell her later, once I had everything in place, once I was successful enough to make her proud. But there was always something else. A flight to catch a meeting, to attend a phone call to make. All the while, she was growing older, slipping further away from me. And now, as I finally stood on her doorstep, I could hear faint sounds of laughter from inside. The sounds of a family, my son-in-law's family, gathered around the fireplace, celebrating a holiday I had promised I would share with her. I had imagined the reunion so many times in my mind, picturing us sitting by the tree, laughing over old memories. But reality had a way of twisting dreams, of turning warm holiday lights into harsh, biting flashes of truth. I could see them through the frosted window, my son-in-law Daniel laughing with his father, Mr. Whitlock, while his sister Eleanor sat by the fire, glass of wine in hand. They were all so comfortable, so content in their world, while my daughter, my flesh and blood, was nowhere to be seen. I moved closer, my boots crunching in the snow, the sound muffled by the heavy silence that surrounded me. I peered through the window, trying to get a glimpse of Charlotte. I imagined her there, maybe wrapping presents or stirring something in the kitchen. But no, she wasn't there. The house, though warm and filled with laughter, felt empty. Her absence hit me like a punch in the gut. I didn't know where she was, but I knew it wasn't inside, not with her family, not with those people who had taken her in, who had let her sit in the shadows while they raised their glasses in joy. I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't stay outside shivering in the cold, pretending I wasn't afraid. The fear gripped me and I didn't even understand it. I had always been the strong one, the one who pushed forward no matter the odds. But now, standing in front of her house, it felt like I was at a crossroads. I knew that if I walked away now, I might never have the courage to return. I stepped forward, my breath quickening. The door was unlocked as I had hoped it would be. I pushed it open with a creak, the warmth of the house spilling out to meet me like an invitation. But it wasn't the warmth that I wanted. It was her, my daughter. Inside, the laughter continued, but it felt distant, almost like it was coming from another world, a world where I wasn't a part of it, a world where I wasn't needed. The heat from the fireplace washed over me, but I barely felt it. My eyes scanned the room, familiar faces all gathered around the fire, but no sign of Charlotte. The long wooden table was piled high with food, golden turkey, cornbread, stuffing cranberry salad, and glinting glasses of red wine, a spread fit for a king. But where was she? Where was my daughter? My heart raced as I turned, scanning the room for any sign of her. I knew I should have been prepared for this. I should have known that things weren't right. I should have known that after all these years of being absent, she wouldn't just welcome me back with open arms. But something in my gut told me this was more than just the years between us. Something was wrong. And then, as if the universe was answering me, I heard it. A soft sound, almost like a whimper, barely audible above the clinking of glasses. It came from the porch. I froze. For a moment, I thought I had imagined it. But no. There it was, again, a faint, fragile sound that chilled me deeper than the winter air. I rushed to the door, throwing it open, and my heart stopped. Charlotte. She was sitting on the old wooden chair by the front porch, the snow falling lightly around her, her head bowed her body, trembling uncontrollably. She was so pale, her skin almost translucent under the faint light. I could see the damp strands of her hair sticking to her forehead, her clothes soaked from the cold. My chest tightened as I rushed to her side, my hands trembling as I touched her arm. It was ice cold. I pulled her into my arms without thinking, feeling the fragile weight of her against me, the way her body shook. Charlotte. I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. What are you doing out here? What's happening? Her face turned upward, eyes red and swollen lips trembling. Mom, she whispered. I couldn't stay in there. I didn't belong there. My heart broke. I held her close, feeling the coldness of her body seep into mine. I wrapped my coat around her, trying to share what little warmth I had, though I knew it was nothing compared to the warmth she needed. She was broken. I could feel it in the way she clung to me, like I was the last piece of safety in a world that had been nothing but cold and unyielding. Her voice was barely a whisper as she said, "They don't want me, Mom. They never have. I don't even know why I stay." Tears burned in my eyes as I hugged her tighter. "I'm here now, sweetheart. I'm here. You're not alone." But even as I said the words, I felt the weight of all the years I had lost, the years I had missed, the years I had let slip away while I focused on everything but her. I had failed her, and I would spend every minute from that moment on trying to fix it. I lifted her into my arms, the snow falling around us like soft, silent tears. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew one thing. I would not let her go again, not this time. I carried her inside, not looking back at the life that had left her outside, in the cold, abandoned by the people who should have loved her most. I would make sure she knew she was worth more than that, and I would fight no matter the cost to show her that she was enough. The warmth of the house wrapped around us as I carried Charlotte inside, but it felt suffocating, oppressive, as if the air had grown thick with tension. The Whitlocks' laughter from the living room still rang in my ears, a sharp contrast to the stillness of the moment. Inside the house was decked out in the usual Christmas decorations, bright red and green garlands hanging from the stair rails, stockings over the fireplace, and a Christmas tree adorned with twinkling lights. But none of it felt real. None of it felt like Christmas. It felt hollow, like a facade that hid something dark and ugly underneath. Charlotte was too quiet as I gently lowered her onto the couch. She didn't meet my eyes. Her gaze was fixed somewhere far off, as if she couldn't quite process what was happening. I draped my scarf over her shoulders, wishing it could be enough to shield her from the frost that had settled deep inside her from the cold that had taken root in her heart. She was shivering despite the heat from the fire, her fingers trembling as she clutched the blanket I tucked around her. "Mom, I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. "I didn't want to ruin Christmas for you. I didn't want to disappoint you again." My heart broke as I heard the self-blame in her voice, a voice that had always been so full of life and laughter when she was younger. But that was before I had spent so much time away chasing my own ambitions. I had missed all of it, the late-night phone calls, when she cried, the quiet moments, when she needed me to listen, the birthday dinners that I had skipped out on because work had been more important. Charlotte had been waiting for me to show up to come back to her to prove that she mattered. But I didn't. Not when it mattered most. I knelt beside her, brushing a strand of damp hair from her forehead, my hand trembling slightly. "You didn't ruin anything, sweetheart. You didn't disappoint me. You never could." She looked at me, then her eyes full of unshed tears, and I saw it, the years of hurt, the weight of everything she'd been carrying alone. "I feel so lost, Mom." She said the words tumbling out like a dam breaking. I've tried so hard to be perfect to be the daughter they wanted, the wife Daniel wanted, but no matter how hard I try, I'm never enough." Her words hit me like a slap in the face, and I felt a sharp pang of guilt twist inside me. "Charlotte, you're enough. You've always been enough. You don't have to be perfect, not for me, not for anyone." But as I said the words, I knew they weren't enough. Not yet. Not when the damage had been done, not when the years of neglect and emotional abuse had taken such a heavy toll on her. I could see it in the way she spoke, in the way she shrank from me, in the way she seemed to expect more pain, more rejection. She had been conditioned to believe that love was conditional, that her worth was measured by how much she could endure. But I wasn't going to let that be her truth anymore. I glanced toward the door to the living room where the Whitlock family's laughter continued, oblivious to what was happening just a few feet away. They were completely unaware of the damage they had inflicted on Charlotte. But I wasn't about to let them remain in the dark for long. The time for silence had passed. I stood, my fists clenched at my sides. The anger that had been simmering in the pit of my stomach since I arrived was bubbling over now. It was one thing to ignore me, to brush me aside as if I were irrelevant, but to treat my daughter like this, to push her to the brink of breaking, was unforgivable. I had spent too long away from her, too long hiding behind my career and my own self-justifications. But no more. I walked into the living room, each step heavier than the last. The soft glow of the Christmas trees seemed to mock me as I stepped into the circle of their happiness. My eyes locked onto Daniel, first sitting on the armchair holding a glass of wine in his hand, his usual smirk plastered on his face. I'd always thought he was a good man, someone who would protect Charlotte, someone who would love her with the tenderness she deserved. But now I saw him for what he truly was, a man who was too weak to stand up to his family, too selfish to see his wife's pain, too cowardly to fight for her when it mattered most. Daniel. I said, my voice cold and sharp, the anger I had been holding back leaking into every word. "Where is she?" He looked at me confused for a moment, and then he waved a hand dismissively. "What's the big deal? She just wanted to take a break. Get some air. She's fine. Don't lie to me." I snapped, the words cutting through the room. "She's not fine. She's sitting outside in the cold, shivering, because you and your family have been tearing her apart. I've had enough of this." The room fell silent. The air, once filled with laughter and cheer, now felt thick and suffocating. Mr. Whitlock, sitting at the head of the table, looked up at me with disdain, his jaw tightening in disapproval. "Sophia," he said in his deep voice, the same voice he used to pass judgment on everyone around him. "This is a family matter. You shouldn't be involved." "No, Mr. Whitlock, this is exactly what I'm involved in. I'm here to make sure my daughter knows she is not alone, that she is not the problem." I stepped closer, my eyes never leaving his. "You've done enough damage. It ends now." Eleanor, his daughter, raised an eyebrow, looking at me as if I had just disturbed her peace. "Oh, please, Sophia, stop being so dramatic. Charlotte's just going through a phase. She's always been sensitive. We've all dealt with it." I felt my blood boil at her words. Sensitivity. That's what they called it. No, it wasn't sensitivity. It was emotional abuse. The years of neglect, the constant belittling, the way they spoke about her like she wasn't even human. This was not a phase. This was something much darker, and I wasn't going to stand by and let it continue. "Don't you dare speak about my daughter like that," I said, my voice low and deadly. "She is not just some sensitive little girl. She is a woman who has been broken by your cruelty, and I am done pretending that it's okay." I turned to Daniel, who had been silent until now. His face was flushed, and he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "You allowed this," I said, pointing at him. "You let your family tear her apart. You stood by while they made her feel worthless. And now you're going to act like everything is fine, like none of this ever happened." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He just stared at me, unsure of what to say. unsure of how to defend his inaction. And in that moment, I realized just how far gone he was, how far gone they all were. "I don't want to hear any more excuses," I said, turning my back on them, walking toward the door. "I'm taking Charlotte home, and if you want any part of her life, you'll have to earn it." I stepped out of the living room back into the hall where Charlotte was still sitting, looking so small and fragile. She looked up at me with those wide, fearful eyes, and I saw the uncertainty still clouding her face. But there was something else, too, a flicker of hope, a spark of something she hadn't felt in so long. She stood up slowly as if testing her own strength. "Mom," she whispered. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this." "You don't have to fix anything," I said, gently pulling her into my arms. "I'm here now, and we'll do this together. You don't have to carry it alone anymore." The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot, but as I held her in my arms, I felt something shift inside of me. It was the first time in a long time that I truly felt like I was doing the right thing. Not for me, not for anyone else, but for Charlotte. I would fight for her no matter the cost, and I would make sure she knew she was loved, that she was enough. The Whitlocks, with all their power and their cruelty, would never break her, not while I was here. The room felt suffocating as I stood in the hallway holding Charlotte close to me. The coldness of the night air seemed to linger in my skin, but it wasn't just the physical chill that made me shiver. The weight of the moment was heavier than the snowstorm outside, thicker than the silence that hung in the room like a dark cloud. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked down at Charlotte, her head tucked against my shoulder, her body still trembling despite the heat of the house around us. The warmth of the fireplace, the laughter of Daniel's family, all of it seemed so far away now, as though we were in an entirely different world. "Let's go, sweetheart." I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, trying to keep my composure. "We're leaving. This place isn't for you anymore. You don't have to endure this, not any longer." Charlotte didn't answer at first. She just clung to me, her fingers digging into the fabric of my coat, as though she were afraid to let go of the last shred of safety she felt. For a moment, I thought she might not move. The years of emotional abuse of being trapped in a toxic marriage with Daniel and a family that didn't value her had left their mark not just on her but on me as well. I had watched her shrink in front of my eyes, her bright, confident smile fading until it was barely a memory. I had watched her struggle in silence, too proud to ask for help, too afraid to burden anyone, but I was done watching. It was time for action. She lifted her head slowly, her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in years, I saw the vulnerability in her that had been buried beneath layers of hurt. "I don't know, Mom," she whispered, her voice cracked with fear. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can keep fighting." The words sliced through me like a knife. I had always been the one to teach her to fight, to be strong, to never back down. And now I could see it. The damage was so deep that even the idea of standing up for herself seemed impossible to her. She had been beaten down for so long by the cruelty of Daniel's family, by the pressure to be perfect, to be everything they wanted her to be, that she no longer knew how to find herself. "You don't have to fight alone anymore, Charlotte," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm here. We're in this together. You don't have to carry all of this on your own anymore. You're not alone." The words seemed to calm her just enough for her to look up at me. Her eyes, still wet with tears, searched mine, as though she were looking for the strength I had promised her. I could feel her clinging to me, needing reassurance, needing to know that there was still hope, even in the face of everything that had happened. "We're going to figure this out, sweetheart," I said softly, stroking her hair. "We'll go somewhere safe where no one can hurt you anymore. No one can make you feel worthless. You don't have to live like this." She nodded slowly, but the doubt in her eyes remained. I could see it, the fear of the unknown, the fear of stepping away from everything she had ever known, even if it had been toxic. But there was something else too, a flicker of hope, a small glimmer of the girl I used to know, the one who used to laugh and sing, along with Christmas carols, the one who dreamed of a life where she was loved, truly loved, for who she was. I wasn't going to let her slip away from me again. "Let's go," I said, my voice stronger now. "We'll figure this out together. I'm not letting you go through this alone anymore." We walked to the door, my hand tightly gripping hers. I felt the weight of the moment, the weight of the choice she was making. She was leaving behind everything she had known, even if it had hurt her. She was stepping into a world of uncertainty, but at least it was a world where she could find healing. She deserved that. She deserved to feel whole again, to find peace in herself. As we stepped out into the cold night air, the snow fell in thick, soft flakes, blanketing the world in a quiet, serene hush. The chill in the air felt different now, as though it had washed away the heaviness that had settled in my heart. I had made the right choice. We were walking away from the chaos, from the pain, from the toxic people who had made Charlotte feel less than. And we were walking toward something better, toward healing, toward love. But as we made our way down the porch steps, my thoughts drifted back to Daniel, back to the family we had just left behind. The anger, the rage I had felt earlier surged back within me. How could they do this to her? How could they treat her like she was nothing? The thought of them, all of them, mocking Charlotte, belittling her for something that wasn't even her fault, made my blood boil. It was a poison that ran through their veins, a poison that had infected her life for too long. I glanced at Charlotte, still silent beside me, her eyes downcast, her footsteps hesitant. I could feel the weight of her struggles, the weight of everything she had endured, but I also knew she was stronger than she realized. She had made it this far despite everything that had been thrown at her. She had survived, and now she was taking the first step toward rebuilding her life, and I would be right there with her every step of the way. I led her to the car, the engine starting with a low hum, the warmth inside already a comfort. As I slid into the driver's seat, I looked over at Charlotte, who had settled into the passenger seat, still so small in her sadness. "We're going to be okay," I said quietly, not just to her, but to myself as well. "We'll find a place where you can heal, where you can be you again." Her lips trembled as she nodded, but this time there was something different in her eyes, a flicker of recognition, a glimmer of hope. "We'll be okay, Mom," she whispered. "I just need time. I need to learn how to trust again." I reached over, gently squeezing her hand. "You don't have to do it alone. Not anymore." The road ahead of us stretched out into the dark night, the headlights cutting through the snow, the world outside quiet and still. But inside the car, it felt like something had shifted. The burden had been lifted just a little. The weight of our past was still heavy, but it wasn't suffocating us anymore. It wasn't going to define our future. The journey to healing wasn't going to be easy. I knew that. There would be moments of doubt, moments of fear, but as long as we had each other, I knew we could face anything. As we drove away from Ashford, I glanced over at Charlotte one more time. Her eyes were still heavy with the weight of everything she had been through, but there was something new there now, something stronger, something that said she was ready to fight, ready to rebuild, ready to live. And I knew with every fiber of my being that we would make it, together. No more fear, no more silence, no more living in the shadows. We were going to take back our lives, and no one could stop us. The road stretched before us, winding through the darkened landscape of Ashford, the headlights cutting through the heavy snow. It felt as though the world had gone still, the only sound the soft hum of the engine and the occasional crunch of tires against the thick blanket of snow. I had my hand gripped firmly on the steering wheel, my knuckles white from the tension. Charlotte sat beside me, her eyes downcast, her fingers nervously twisting the edge of her sleeve. There was a quiet stillness in the air, a kind of calm after the storm, but I knew that beneath it, a storm was still raging inside her. I had seen it in the way her hands trembled, in the tightness in her shoulders, in the way she flinched at every sound. I could feel the weight of her pain, the years of abuse and neglect, the fear that still clung to her like a second skin. I didn't know where we were going, not exactly. I didn't have a plan, not one that felt concrete enough to rely on. But what I did know deep down in my gut was that we were going somewhere better. We were going somewhere safe, away from the Whitlocks, away from the suffocating grip of Daniel's family, away from the toxic atmosphere they had created in that house. For the first time in years, I was making a decision based on what felt right, based on what Charlotte needed, not what anyone else expected from us. The quiet car ride was interrupted only by the occasional shift in Charlotte's seat or the soft sound of her breathing. She hadn't said much since we left the house, her thoughts clearly weighed down by everything that had happened. I wanted to reach over and take her hand, but I could feel that she wasn't quite ready for that. Not yet. She was still in the midst of processing everything, and I knew better than to force anything. We had been on the road for what felt like hours when I finally broke the silence. "I'm so sorry, Charlotte," I said, my voice trembling, the words feeling heavy in my chest. "I know I wasn't there for you, and I can't change that. But I promise you this, I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to get through this together." She didn't look at me right away, but I saw her shoulders tense slightly as she blinked back tears. "I don't know if I can believe that anymore," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know if I can believe in anyone. I've been hurt too many times." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had always known how much pain she carried, but hearing her say it out loud made it so much more real. I had failed her for so long, not just as a mother, but as someone who should have been her protector. It wasn't just the Whitlocks. It was Daniel, too, the man I had trusted to love and care for. Her, the man I had allowed into her life. He had betrayed her, and I had let it happen. I had allowed it to go on for far too long. "I know you don't trust me right now, and I get that," I continued, my voice thick with emotion. "But I swear to you, Charlotte, that I am never going to leave you again. I don't care what it takes. I'll fight for you. I'll fight for us no matter what. You don't have to carry this alone. We're in this together, and I'll be here every step of the way." She didn't say anything at first, but I could see her hands twitching in her lap, her fingers drumming nervously against her jeans. The silence between us grew, stretching longer and longer, and for a moment I wasn't sure if she had heard me at all. But then, finally, she spoke. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I feel like I've been fighting my whole life, but I'm so tired, Mom. I don't know if I can keep fighting. I don't know how to make it stop, how to fix everything that's broken inside me." Her words shattered me, a reminder of just how deep the wounds ran. I could see it now. This wasn't just about the Whitlocks or Daniel or even the endless cycle of emotional abuse. This was about years of damage, years of Charlotte feeling like she wasn't enough, like she wasn't worthy of love. The doubt, the guilt, the shame, it had all been planted so deep within her, and I was only now starting to understand just how much it had affected her. "You don't have to fight anymore," I said, my voice soft but firm, as if saying it aloud would make it real. "You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to do this on your own anymore. I'm here and I'll fight for you. We'll get through this together, one day at a time." She turned her head slightly, her eyes glistening with tears that she hadn't yet let fall. "What if I don't know who I am anymore?" she asked quietly. "What if I'm too broken to fix?" The question hung in the air, and I felt a lump form in my throat. It was a question that had haunted me too, that had kept me awake at night, wondering if I could ever make up for the years I had missed. But the truth was, we didn't need to be fixed. None of us were broken beyond repair. We just needed time. Time to heal. Time to rebuild. time to rediscover ourselves. You're not broken, Charlotte. I said, my voice steady now, a quiet resolve filling me. You're just lost right now, but you'll find your way back. You're not alone. You're not beyond saving. The car grew quiet again, but this time it didn't feel as heavy. I could see the smallest shift in Charlotte's demeanor, a slight easing of the tension in her shoulders. She didn't say anything else, but I could feel her presence beside me, the quiet strength she still carried inside, even if she couldn't see it herself yet. I had faith in her, more faith than I had in anything else. The next few weeks were a blur. We found a small apartment on the outskirts of town, a place far enough away from the Whitlocks that we could breathe, but close enough for me to continue my work. Charlotte didn't speak much about what had happened, about the abuse she had endured. She didn't have to. I could see it in the way she held herself, in the way she flinched at loud noises, or avoided eye contact when we ran into people from our past. The scars weren't visible on her skin, but they were there, hidden deep inside. I enrolled her in therapy, though she was hesitant at first. She didn't think it would help, didn't think anyone could fix what had been broken for so long. But I persisted. I knew that she needed it, even if she didn't yet realize how much. As for me, I threw myself into making our new life work. I rearranged the furniture in our small apartment, tried to make it feel like home. But more than anything, I worked on being present for Charlotte. I worked on proving that I wasn't going to leave again, that I wasn't going to let her slip away from me. In those early days, there were moments of doubt, moments when Charlotte would retreat into herself, when I would wonder if I was doing enough. But slowly, I started to see glimpses of the girl she used to be. The one who would laugh at the silliest things, the one who would hum along to songs on the radio, the one who would talk endlessly about her dreams for the future. She hadn't disappeared. She had just been buried beneath the weight of everything she had been through. We had our hard days. There were nights when Charlotte would curl up on the couch, her face buried in a pillow, crying until there were no more tears left. But there were also moments of joy, moments when she would smile for real, when she would laugh without hesitation, when I could see the light returning to her eyes. And slowly, as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I saw something incredible happening. Charlotte was beginning to heal. Slowly but surely, she was starting to reclaim the pieces of herself she had lost. She was learning to trust again, learning that it was okay to let people in, learning that she was worthy of love, that she was enough. I had no illusions that the road ahead would be easy. There were still battles to be fought, still wounds to be healed. But for the first time in a long time, I believed we could make it. Together. And that was all that mattered. The months that followed felt like a slow, deliberate unraveling of everything Charlotte and I had once known. Our life, as we had known it for so many years, had been shattered, and now we were piecing together something new, something different. It wasn't easy, and there were days when it felt like we were getting nowhere. The weight of our past was heavy, but there was something else that had begun to grow between us. Something stronger than the years of silence and distance. It was the quiet understanding that no matter how difficult it got, we were finally facing it together. Charlotte and I had always shared a special bond, but after everything, it was as if we were both learning how to trust each other again. I had to rebuild that trust with her, and she had to rebuild it with herself. She was healing, but it wasn't a straight line, not by any means. Some days she would wake up, her eyes filled with determination, ready to face the world, and other days she would retreat into herself, consumed by the weight of everything she had gone through. I could see the struggle in her eyes, and it broke my heart each time. But I knew that healing wasn't something that could be rushed. I had to be patient both with her and with myself. We spent most of our days trying to find our rhythm in this new life. I went back to work, though it was hard to focus some days. There were moments when the weight of my own guilt would creep in, reminding me of all the time I had wasted, of the times I had let her slip away thinking she would be fine. But Charlotte had been hurt by more than just my absence. The way Daniel's family had treated her, the emotional torment she had endured, had cut so deep that it would take time for her to heal fully. And that was okay. We didn't need to rush it. We just needed to be there for each other each day. I took her to therapy twice a week. At first, she resisted not believing that talking to someone would do anything. But as the sessions went on, I could see her start to open up, even if only a little bit at a time. She began to realize that she didn't have to hold everything in, that it was okay to let it out, to cry, to be angry, to feel the things she had buried for so long. The first time she came home after a session, her eyes were red and puffy, but there was something different in her demeanor. It was as if she had finally allowed herself to feel what had been sitting inside her for so long. I never realized how much I've been holding back. She told me, her voice shaky, but there was a small glimmer of understanding in her eyes. I never thought it was okay to be angry, to be sad. I thought I had to just keep going, keep pretending that everything was fine. But it's not, is it? No, it's not, I said, sitting beside her on the couch, my heart aching for her. It's not fine, Charlotte. And it's okay to not be okay. You don't have to pretend anymore. I'm here. You're not alone. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our shared understanding pressing in on us. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, though. It was the kind of silence that spoke volumes, the kind that said, I'm here with you. We'll get through this. There were good days and bad days. The good days were the ones when Charlotte would make a joke, or when she would help me bake cookies, something we used to do when she was little. She had always loved baking, loved getting her hands messy with flour and sugar, and it made my heart swell when I saw her pick up a whisk again with a smile tugging at her lips. It was as though she was finding her way back to the parts of herself she'd buried so deep. And on the good days, I could see glimpses of that girl again, the girl who loved to laugh, who had big dreams and a heart full of hope. But the bad days, the hard days, they still came. The days when the memories would overwhelm her, when she would curl up on the couch, crying silently, unable to escape the weight of what had been done to her. I couldn't always fix it. I couldn't always make the pain go away, but I could be there. I could hold her. I could remind her that it wasn't her fault, that she didn't deserve any of it. I wasn't going to let her slip through my fingers again, not this time. Not ever again. It was on one of those hard days that I found myself sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the rain fall. Charlotte had been inside, sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, lost in thought. I could tell she was struggling, but I didn't push her. I knew that sometimes the best thing I could do was give her space to breathe, to think, to feel whatever it was that was consuming her in that moment. As I sat there, I couldn't help but think back to everything that had happened. The years of mistakes, of neglect, of moments I could never get back. I had failed Charlotte, but I was trying to make it right. I was trying to be the mother she needed. It wasn't enough to just say the words. I had to show her. I had to prove it day after day by being present, by listening, by never giving up on her no matter how hard it got. The door opened behind me and I turned to see Charlotte standing there, her expression softer than it had been in days. She stepped outside slowly, cautiously, and sat down beside me, her legs pulled up to her chest. "Are you okay?" I asked softly, my voice laced with concern. She didn't answer at first. Instead, she just sat there staring at the rain, her eyes distant. I didn't pressure her to speak. I knew she wasn't ready, but I was here. That was all that mattered. "I'm trying," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to move forward, but sometimes it feels like everything is too much. I don't know if I can ever really be okay again." "You will be," I said, my voice firm, unwavering. "It's going to take time, sweetheart, but you'll get there. One day at a time." She looked at me, her eyes filled with uncertainty, but there was something else there too. A flicker of hope, small but undeniable. "Do you really believe that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I do," I said, squeezing her hand gently. "I believe in you, and I believe in us. We've got this. We just need to keep moving forward." And we did. Slowly, steadily, we kept moving forward. It wasn't easy. The bad days still came, and there were moments when it felt like we were stuck, like we weren't making progress. But I could see it, the small victories. The days when Charlotte would laugh for real, when she would make plans for the future, when she would talk about what she wanted to do with her life beyond just surviving. I saw her fighting, even when she didn't think she had the strength. We took small steps, but those steps added up. We found a new rhythm, one that didn't involve pretending everything was fine. We didn't have to hide anymore. We could feel our feelings, express our pain, and still know that it didn't define us. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, but it was real, and that was enough. One day as we sat in the kitchen baking cookies together, I looked at Charlotte, really looked at her. Her eyes were brighter now, not as haunted as they had been. She was smiling, and it wasn't forced. She was here with me in this moment, and for the first time in a long time, I could see the future stretching out ahead of us, not filled with fear and doubt, but with possibility. "You know, Mom," she said, her voice light, "I think I might want to start a blog. I've been thinking about it for a while now." I smiled, my heart swelling with pride. "I think that's a great idea, Charlotte." "What would you write about?" "I don't know yet," she said, "but I think I have a lot to say. I think maybe someone out there needs to hear it." "You'll do amazing," I said, leaning over and hugging her tightly. "You're strong, Charlotte, and you've got so much to offer the world." She smiled, the warmth in her eyes undeniable now. "Thanks, Mom. I'm really glad you're here." I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew one thing for certain: we had each other, and that was all we needed. Together, we were going to be okay. In life, we all face struggles, some of which may seem insurmountable. But one thing I've learned through my own journey is that healing is possible, and it starts with accepting that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. Whether you're dealing with past trauma, emotional abuse, or simply feeling lost, the most important step is to reach out for support. It's easy to feel like you're too broken to heal, but trust me, you're not. You are stronger than you realize, and you have the power to rebuild step by step. Surround yourself with those who uplift you, whether it's family, friends, or professionals, and allow yourself to feel anger, sadness, joy, and hope. Each emotion is part of your healing journey. I urge you to take the first step, no matter how small, towards reclaiming your strength. You are worthy of love, of support, and of peace. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. To everyone reading this, I encourage you to share your stories. What steps have you taken towards healing? How have you overcome the hurdles life has thrown your way? I'd love to hear from you. Let's create a space where we can uplift and support one another, where we can show that no matter the darkness we face, there is always a way forward. Thank you for taking the time to read. I believe in all of you, and I am grateful to be part of this community. Together we can grow stronger. Together we can heal. Don't forget you are not alone. Keep going because the best is yet to come.